Sensitivity is intelligence. With grace and skill, you have abundance. Welcome to the Psychic Hour. Host Kelly Brickle is a psychic medium healer, numerologist, and teacher. Her passions are learning about the soul and energy. Whether it's through spirit, emotion, or vibrational numbers, there's always a pathway of information waiting to help. Now, here is your host of the Psychic Hour, Kelly Brickle.
Hello, welcome to the Psychic Hour on WLTKDB, Let's Talk Radio. I'm Kelly Brickle, and this is the Psychic Hour where we talk about all things spirituality, psychic mediumship, intuition, healing, soul growth, and we have Susan Schueler on the show today. We'll be interviewing her in a little bit and diving into just discussion in her life. That's why I love this show, so many different soul journeys that get to be expressed and talked about. And this is a platform where we can have discussion, whether it's, the guest or directly with people just popping down questions and chatting and sharing their experiences. So I love it. The topic of the day I wanted to dive into, because we always start that way, is about soul growth. Soul growth. It's such a unique experience. We can't avoid it. We really can't. We're always learning. Every day is new. So we're uptaking these unique and new vibrations, and some of them are fantastic and exciting. And some of the people we meet are wonderful and they're encouraging and doors open. And then we also have the flip side where the feelings are confusing, or we don't love the people that are surrounding us. They don't feel supportive, or we feel isolated. And regardless of what we're given or what we find ourselves in, and we're always in cycles where we get the good, the bad, the ugly, the glorious, the confused. So we're always in cycles. That's human life. I think that furthers, the understanding of it could change tomorrow. It could change next year. Just keep going. No matter what happens, we're always growing our soul. And I definitely have seen within myself and with other people, when there are particular circumstances when we're confused and we're uncertain, but we show up and we're committed, whether it's an uncertainty about a relationship or uncertainty about a project, right? It's almost like, I don't know if I have what I need. I don't know if it's going to go correctly. Like, what if you don't have enough information on, let's say, a really important opportunity for you, and you're just kind of going, I have to wing it. Maybe I just have to wing this. I don't feel secure. Or even in a health situation, I feel that when we show up and we're committed to dealing with this situation, there is tremendous soul growth, even if it feels like we don't have all the variables and there's so many missing pieces. I frequently see within others, whether it takes a week or a month or a year, if they continue to show up committed, they just start to glow through the experience. They start to glow, and they start to find that the situation provides luck. The situation provides answers. Maybe the clouds don't open up, right? Maybe the situation is still there. But it's almost like, since their intention was like, I'm going to see this through, even though I'm in agony or immense frustration or immense uncertainty, your energy starts lining up where you need to go. And I really frequently see, and have experienced myself, you come out on the other side quite beautifully, or in a situation where you get a majority of the answers coming your way, a majority of the luck finding you, because you stuck with it. And your soul was like, I needed to be here for whatever reason. And now the reasons are finding me. And there's immense just relief. There's immense satisfaction. There's immense, just a sigh, right? And that's really the number one thing, is like, if we don't check out, if we don't let go, if we don't avoid, a lot of things actually very much blossom, because the energy of the experience that you are in turmoil with, it's amping up to do something else. It's not just amping up to destroy. The world is full of destruction and creation. So if you feel like there's systems, beliefs or situations destroying in your life, or people destroying what you have within your life, if you continue to work through it, the truth of the matter is the way that we live is about creation and destruction. So new things will be created. And if you are intensely showing up, you will intensely create. And that's why I see so many blossoms and I see so many people glow when, let's say, they look like they've been through a shipwreck and they look tired, they feel tired. Their minds are tired, their hearts are tired, but you can tell that things are shifting and changing for the better. And it might be a slow sailing. It might be. Um, but we're given emotions and we're given situations. And I do think, we should show up as passionately for the uncertainty as we show up as passionately if someone hands us the golden keys to the city. Because emotions in life, they're supposed to be multifaceted. Do all of us have a great relationship with anger? Maybe yes, maybe no. Do all of us have a great relationship with sadness? Maybe yes, maybe no. What's your relationship with despair, shame, guilt, grief? Do those emotions feel awkward and not so great? Yes. But do they provide something about the intelligence of the universe and why those emotions are even capable of being experienced within us? There's a function at play. There's a function that needs to play out of why we have these variety of experiences. They're not just something latent that should never be experienced. They're not just something like a program that never should be accessed or clicked on. They're there for a very high function. And it really most times unlocks these beautiful experiences within us. Um, on the show before, we've used the words Kundalini energy, right? And so um, the Kundalini experience is when there's an opening of energy. And sometimes it feels amazing and sometimes it does not feel amazing. Like literally, Kundalini energy by most people are known for, like, you'll wake up in the middle of the night, maybe like sweating, or you'll feel like you're not in your body, or you'll feel like, very disjointed, like you'll have an existential crisis. You'll be like, what's real? Even though you're maybe aware of what's real to a certain degree. You will feel very off kilter, or you'll feel like certain things within your body, like energy opening up, or you being more sensitive, but the sensitivity is heightened. So it feels very uncomfortable. And I feel like a lot of us are going through Kundalini activations on, minute levels, like all the time, every day, not as hyped up as that. And really these like access portals are through our emotions. So my advice in this situation is, if you really dive deep within your emotions and kind of go, okay, this is going to be awkward. This is going to be weird. This is going to be probably not even well received by people if I'm very honest and truthful about maybe how I feel about the matter. Um, but it's going to allow me a doorway to access my truth. It's going to allow me a doorway for maybe even other people to access the truth of the situation. I actually can find a route to a lot of beauty in the uncertainty, at least on your level. You can't control how other people react or how other people feel and see their truth. And the truth is the truth, we don't have our truth or their truth. If you want to be really logical about it, it's just the truth. And you can't make anyone see what they are not able or ready to see, because there's plenty of things that I just haven't been able to see until a certain point in my life. And there's plenty of things that we are blind to all the time. You know, we're always just evolving and growing and opening. And to embrace that on a very simple level, but to embrace that on a very uncomfortable level too. Enjoy the journey or respect the journey, right? Um, or make space for the journey, but don't escape from the journey. That's what I have to say. Make space for the journey, don't escape from the journey. And I'm saying really quick to everyone coming in. So, hello, Kevin, Vanessa, Keith, Summer. Hello, everybody coming on in. And we're going to be doing the interview show today. So, we are just going to be talking about all things spiritual. If you have a question, you can pop that down. We aren't doing readings today, but we are doing discussions or talking about life experiences. So, if you do have a question about your life experience, and how it connects to your spirituality and understanding, we're diving in there. All right, everybody. With that said, we're going to be back in a couple of minutes with Susan Schueler. We will see you in a bit. Hello, everybody, and we are back. Hello. Let's bring Susan on in. Yes. Hey, Susan. Hello.
Hey, Kelly. How are you? Nice to see you.
It's lovely to see you too, Susan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thanks.
Excellent. I want to introduce you to everyone and everyone to be introduced to you. So everyone say a warm hello to Susan. Susan Schueler lives in Venice Beach, California with her 3 dogs and magical cat Merkaba. Susan does live mediumship and psychic demonstrations, private readings, including past life and spiritual assessments, as well as small group readings in New York and California. Prior to being a full-time psychic medium, Susan was a high school English teacher for 25 years and is now certified in psychic mediumship. Originally, she was in both New York and California, specializing in secondary education. She holds many advanced degrees and loves to teach others how to use their intuitive abilities, and therefore hosts several in-person and online development courses, circles, and workshops, teaching both adults and young people how to use their spiritual abilities. She is grateful and happy to serve mankind and the spirit world. Welcome.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I love what you had to say before the show. That was great about the soul.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a rocky but beautiful ride, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so funny. It always blows me away how some people just are so disconnected from their souls, because it's really a deal change. It changes everything when you're like, you have such a relationship.
It really does. I think we're all reconnecting and remembering, and there's parts of us that are so strong. And that's probably how we show up as a teacher for other people, you know, to help shine light on the areas that they are remembering. And then there's other areas, even as teachers, where we're like, I'm working on this. I'm really working on this.
True. Very true.
As a young person, because I like to talk about intuition at a young age, whether people, let's say, had that within their life or whether they came into it later. As a young person, what were some of your spiritual strengths?
Oh boy. I feel like I always noticed a lot. You know what I mean? I felt like I was very much, is the case because we're empaths. We can be a bit of a chameleon, so we can sort of meld with most groups if we need it to be. I always used to joke how I could talk to a brick wall if I needed to. And my parents owned a restaurant and we lived upstairs from it. So I used to just be 8 years old and wandering around the dining room and talking to customers. You know what I mean? So I can definitely say that was a strength. And I know it was using my intuition at a young age when I didn't know how to label that. Yeah. You know, as a young person, I can say there were a lot of things that I don't know that I would say they were necessarily strengths. It was more at the time, it seemed like, you know, seeing spirit people when you're really young, that doesn't feel like a strength. That's terrifying. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I would call that a strength.
Well, it's like a strength now that you go, oh, I was able to have that kind of information. Maybe I didn't understand it, but that was accessible to me.
Right. Right.
Absolutely. And did you understand then, because you just mentioned I was seeing, people that passed. Did you know at a young age that you were seeing just that?
Well, you know, in our restaurant where I grew up, it was a very old building, and we had this dark, creepy basement. I mean, so creepy. It had like stone walls and dirt floors. And so I used to have to clean parts of the restaurant. And whenever I'd be down there by myself, my father, sick sense of humor, thought it was funny to shut the lights off. So there
No.
I was, like 6 years old, he's shutting off the lights, having a good time with it. And I could sense like people, what seemed to me like people off in the corner. So what I actually started doing at a really young age is just starting to have conversations with them, because it helped me to not be as scared. And it wasn't until years later that I realized that they were real people. You know, I wasn't making it up, because as you know, it's like so many of our psychic and mediumistic abilities come in through our imagination.
Yeah, yeah, until you go, what exactly is that? And
Exactly.
feel a connection.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you had conversations, did you feel like it was your imagination when you were a kid, where you're like, no, there's somebody down here?
I knew there were people in the basement. I absolutely knew there were people in the basement. I remember telling my family members there were people in the basement. My sisters felt it as well. My mother thought we were nuts. My father just liked to tease us. But I mean, and all through the house, I mean, there was a lot of really paranormal activity where I grew up in the biggest kind of way. And as you know, as psychics and mediums, because we're like that, it tends to follow us. You know, so I think they realized that I could see them. And then I think when I was about 11, I started hearing voices. And I remember sitting in the restaurant and it wasn't like one voice telling me one thing. It was a loud din of voices, like everybody was hollering at me at once. And I was like, oh my God, don't you hear that? And people are looking at you like you're nuts. Yes.
That experience of all of a sudden you can hear, that would take me aback, right? Like,
Yeah.
what is going on?
And thankfully, I mean, my parents were never around, but thankfully I knew to keep my mouth shut, or they probably would have medicated me, because I mean, I'm sure you know several people. I know so many mediums who were medicated.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so, and then I went through this period where I would be like in 7th or 8th grade, and I'd be in like French class, and then I'd lose time. And the next thing I'd know, I'd be home. And I would have no recollection of how I got from point A to point B.
Yeah, you were just in the zone.
I don't know what was going. I thought I was losing my mind.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like you're just like channeling and getting the day by. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So like go ahead.
No, but I didn't know any of that. And there wasn't, I mean, now kids are lucky. There's podcasts like this and things where you can talk to people, but I really thought I was losing it.
There's sometimes for kids, maybe they wouldn't label this as it per se, but it's an existential crisis a little bit, because your sense of reality and your sensory experiences, they really become very different when some of these abilities get activated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do remember asking my sister one time, and she just put me right in my place. She didn't want to hear anything about it. So I just learned to not tell people about it. And then I had some really strange things happen. So it's funny. I mean, I don't really, I remember doing memory games. Like, you know how you use those ESP, I'm dating myself by saying ESP, but those ESP cards, I remember doing that with a friend and like really blowing her mind. So it was like, we used to play with stuff like that and do the Ouija board. But most of it was just stuff that would really scare me and would keep me to the point where I would try to shy away from it. Yeah.
If I may ask too, so with family members that didn't understand, or even friends, like within your background with religion, did your religion accept these abilities or accept the possibilities of intuition?
Yeah.
How was that?
I grew up Catholic and became a born again Christian as I got older. My mother became a very hardcore born again Christian. So I'm thankful for the fact that I grew up with a belief system where I pray and I had faith and I spoke to spirits and that sort of thing. But I can say even my mother, who was always a born again Christian thereafter, she wouldn't come to see any of my demonstrations or anything like that until just recently. And she's got dementia now. But I mean, I've been doing this for years. And she was like, I'm not saying that's not real. I don't want to not support you, but I can't support you because my religion says that's not good. Yeah. So I definitely wasn't supported by my family. No.
It's rough. It's rough, and there's I think it's fascinating because with Catholicism, there are certain passages where it states, there's people who have certain gifts and they talk about healers, or they talk about, something like a prophet.
Well, look at Joan of Arc, Joan of Arc was a great example.
Yeah. There's all these gifts given that are considered, let's say by God, by spirit, but they're not the typical gifts, I guess one would walk the world in, but they're acknowledged even in the Bible. So I do think it's interesting, but people are always trying to understand what's what when they're learning about what the Bible is. So,
right.
Yeah.
It's a fun. But it's amazing to me. I don't know if you grew up in a religion, but to me, it's amazing to me how many mediums I know grew up like I grew up with, Catholic or something like that. Did you grow up with a religion?
Yeah, Catholicism as well. Went to Sunday school and everything. Yeah,
I've done all the sacraments. You know what I mean, except for death. Yeah.
Well, we all have little forms of death, right?
Right. True. Yeah.
Transformation. Yeah.
But as I got older, it was like mediumship. It was definitely, as it's like you can run, but you can't hide. This is going to find you. I mean, as much as you try to push it aside. I remember in college waking up with something on top of me, and I could feel it breathing. And all I could do is look at my clock, which was 3:33. You'll appreciate that. 3:33. And it happened night after night after night.
Wow.
And so, of course, I told my Catholic grandmother who I lived with, and she gave me a Blessed Mother nightlight to sleep with. It helped, but I mean, I just prayed and I prayed, but that was really the first time I felt like something not nice. Yeah. So that was a bit of and then by the time I was in my 30s, I was literally getting pushed out of bed at night. It was like the alarm clock was going off and girl, you got to get your butt in gear to start doing this. So,
but did you necessarily, the weight on your chest and the 3:33 and then all of a sudden being pushed out of bed, did you know that was connected to being a medium?
At that time, I just knew that I was super sensitive to things. I didn't really even know that I was a medium until many years later. I mean, because I just didn't put two and two together. Like I said, I didn't tell anybody that I'd heard voices until I was almost 40 years old. It was just that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's like I'm not sharing that with anybody. I
was saying that.
Yeah, it's like I don't want people to think less of you. And now I just talk about it freely. I don't really care, but years ago, and we're lucky things are much more open about this than they were 30 years ago, 20 years ago.
Right. There's not the same scrutiny quite the same way. It's more of, I think people are more open in general, and they just go, well, I don't know. Maybe if it goes against their beliefs, they go, I don't know. I don't understand it, but they at least will listen more, I find.
Exactly. And I'm always blown away whenever I start a new development circle, how many people who might be newbies are saying, oh my God, for so many years, I couldn't talk to anybody about this. I thought I was losing my mind. It is so nice to sit with a group of people who all had similar situations. I mean, I don't know about you, but that was exactly how I felt when I first started sitting in development circles. I was like, oh my God, it's not just me.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I'm very passionate about just communicating that this is way more normal than a lot of people give it credit for.
Absolutely.
And we all have very different abilities. So sometimes the normalcy gets overlooked because it's like, oh, not everyone will hear things. Not everything will be about the feeling or the scene. It could be something really random. But people have these extraordinary gifts where information comes to them. And just because they don't hear their exact way of how it happens within another person too, they'll kind of just go like, I guess I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Right. Or it's just a figment of my imagination.
Yeah.
Well, if everyone, let's just say everyone just psychically and mediumistically just saw, they didn't do anything else, but they just saw, I think we would come together so much quicker because we would be talking about, oh, seeing is a thing. Yeah, we all do that. We all do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So are you very, can I,
No.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Ask what you're going to ask.
We're very excited to communicate. You mentioned hearing things at your parents' restaurant and that being activated. So are you a strong hearer today? Are you very audience?
You know, I am now, but I wasn't when I first started. That was probably one of my later clairs to kind of tap into. I hear other people's voices, like I'll hear my guide speaking to me, or I'll hear somebody else's guide speaking to me. But I have to say more than anything, and this took me a while to figure out, because of my literature background and being an English teacher, it was all about words. So I thought for the longest time I was being clairaudient, clear hearing, when I was actually seeing words.
Yes.
So for me, yeah. So I saw words, I saw quotes, I saw, songs. I actually see the title of the song rather than hear it. Now I do both, but it kind of started off more clairvoyantly.
100%. That's like, if there was a name, it'd be written out, right? I played a lot of Scrabble growing up, so
But you know what? It uses our frame of reference, so that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's just however the words come. But yeah, I loved words. I can relate to you, and so some of those experiences would be more leaned into, right? It would just be a knowing, or it would be a visual rather than hearing it.
See, and I have to say, the clear knowing, the clear cognizance, that was the last one to kick in for me, because there was no proof. It was like I could see the words, I could hear the sound, I could feel the feelings, but to just know, I didn't trust myself enough at first. That took a long time to develop.
It's all over the place, I think that was one of the things that I didn't even know what it was, but all of a sudden I would just kind of know it. Like I would feel an energy coming in. I'd be like, oh, something's coming into my brain and now it's here. And okay. And then, but you overthink your knowing because you're like, well, where the heck does that come from? And what the heck is that? Like, that sounds like ludicrous, right? And then, so other things got built up. And so there was times where my knowing was really strong. And sometimes I didn't have any of my knowing. It was just, you have to just describe what you see and feel.
Right. And I mean, if you think about this, and of course, as an educator, I can definitely understand this. We are trained from day one to be analytical.
Yeah.
And so it's instilled in us, we're supposed to think. And in doing this work, that's the last thing we want to do, is to think. So I've heard it described as learning a different language, and it's certainly the hardest language.
Well, it incorporates all languages. So that's the cool part, because you can literally get someone talking Spanish or German, and then you will be able to break down that language because it's through the heart, it's through the soul, but you still know what they're saying.
Right. Absolutely.
It's the most complex language. It just, yeah, you're making me think about like metaphors. Like sometimes when I think about this work, you hear like the whole, I don't think about Bible stories a lot. I don't, Susan, even though I respect them, I really do. But it's like the Tower of Babel, like we all spoke the same language and then we all got split. And so there's, so many different languages in the world, but when you are connected with someone's soul and spirit, it's just, you just know what they're saying. You just know what they're telling you.
Absolutely. And that's why, like what you would talk about, like with soul growth, what I noticed is the more that you've delved into your soul, so you understand your soul, the easier it is for us to do soul to soul blending, where we then can pick up other souls.
Absolutely.
And that's why I just feel like it's so important that we do the work for us, before, because it's so much easier to develop if you've done your work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that, we're supposed to hit brick walls to go, hey, it's time to take a step back, and you need to look at this before you can see clearly again. And that happens all around, definitely with life. One of my favorite things to do, and I don't know how you work, Susan, I'd be curious to know, is before a reading, especially a psychic one, it will be a psychic one, but I will do a mini check-in with myself. So I go, okay, I know my energy. So when I'm with another person, then I'm going to know their energy because I already just 5 minutes ago felt me. So I know how to not mix it up, or I know if I'm getting a reference, it's coming in for them, and I'm solid on it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I don't do anything like that. I think I just, it's weird. When I focus on another person, I imagine like facing the other person, even if you're doing a distant reading. Whereas when I do mediumship, it comes in behind me.
Yeah.
So for me, and I'm so focused on the other being, that I think I shut down my stuff. With the exception, clairsentiently, I remember, one time getting ready to do a reading, and I was in such excruciating pain, like my right ovary, that I thought to myself, oh my God, I got to cancel this reading. I got to cancel this. And it was actually the person I was picking up.
That's 100% real. And that's why, so my body lights up a lot when I read. And so that helps me go, that muscle, that ain't my muscle.
Yeah.
My eye twitch, that ain't mine.
Right. Yeah. So
and it's confusing sometimes.
Yeah. No, it is. Sometimes, it's absolutely confusing. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of doing it for a period of time, is you start realizing the minute I say it, if it goes away, okay, that's you, that's not me.
Right? No, that's 100% real. I've had experiences where all of a sudden, right before the reading, I'll have like you said like ovary pain. I've gotten the ovary stuff too, or I'll get excruciating back pain, like where it will hurt to walk, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't know, right? And as soon as, like, I've had in the past, I've had to cancel things, and as soon as I would cancel it, it would go away, and I'm like, oh, okay, but like I couldn't even use my brain because I was in so much excruciating pain. So thank you for the lesson, but that was a little confusing. It was a little confusing for a second.
Yeah.
But then you learn to acknowledge it, and it will just dissipate. Isn't that fantastically odd and wonderful, kind of?
But it does work.
But it does work. It does work. What are some of the most unique experiences, besides the ovary one that you mentioned, that have come across you and then washed away once acknowledged?
Oh gosh, there's been so many. What I especially love is when you're demonstrating and you're so blended with the other soul that you're doing things with your hands that people are like, oh my God, you look just like my mother right now. Or they say that exact expression. I love when you blend that well. Yeah.
That's something that I think sometimes gets overlooked. There's even the hand. Well, some people know, like you said, like, oh, that's my mother. But the gestures of, like, why are you doing what with what? Right. And it's just, it all comes together, and it's so, this work never gets old, even though even though we're describing things and you're like, of course we would do things with our hands. It's just, but when it's happening, you're like, whoa, it never gets old.
Exactly.
Everything's a surprise.
And I mean, I'm a life path 7 person. You'll appreciate this because you're a number person.
Yes.
So I am a lifelong learner. And to me, it's like, I love always taking classes. I love always learning new ways to see things, because I feel like each year I read a little bit differently than I did the year before. You know, it's constantly switching and evolving and hopefully getting better, you know, but it's definitely evolving.
I agree, you know, it's not made to be the same. No, just like we're not made to be the same.
Right.
We talked about connection and disconnection a little bit in the beginning. So what are some of your favorite ways to connect to your soul?
Oh boy. I actually have to do a visualization where I put my human off to one side and I put my soul to the other side. And I just really put all of my attention on my soul. And my soul actually has a name. I know what her name is. I call it a her. It's Saucy, but I don't know. I'm sure it's genderless. But a lot of times we'll just sit together, just like I go sit in the spirit world sometimes, and with no agenda. It's like, we're just going to sit here and kind of commune, you know? And I learned to do that through different meditations over the years, you know, and sometimes it's just a matter of sitting. And you know how I'm sure you're familiar with sitting in the power meditation. You know, to me, it's just like, I'm here. And then sometimes I just need like to refill my cup through the divine life force as you're sitting with the power of your soul, and then kind of getting the energy, you know, filling you up. Because we do, with the work that we do, we give so much of things away that it's like you have to make sure that you're filling your own soul's cup. I can't tell you how many people I know who do this work who have autoimmune issues, fibromyalgia, things like that, where they'll actually get sick because they give their life force away. So I'm very, very clear about my boundaries to make sure that doesn't happen.
Absolutely, to refuel. And I do think we take on energy, you know, we don't even mean to sometimes, but I mean, I think everyone just does that so naturally, you know, you share energy. That's why you have empathy with people, or that's why you can relate to someone's, you know, story, just sharing time with people, sharing energy. But when we are doing this work, we're so much more open to receiving that things will kind of just stay, even though we think they're gone. And so we need that like sitting in the power of the awareness of self. Like, what have I taken on?
Absolutely. And I mean, doing demonstrations when I was married, my ex I'd call and say, I'm on my way home. He'd be like, okay, I'll run the bath water, knowing full well I would get in the house, take a salt bath, and he'd say, I was washing the dead people off me. And we kind of joked about it, but it's like, I'm a salt bath freak. I mean, I take at least one a day, and it's just definitely that. It's like, I want my energy to be my energy.
Yes. No, there's just, I'm water and salt. I'm a huge fan of it. What it can do, it purifies, cleanses. It just makes you feel like yourself again.
Absolutely.
I'm a huge proponent. I like nearly every show, I'm like, water and salt, water and salt.
And use lavender, it, everybody. I have to say, I'm just a freak with lavender.
What does lavender do for you?
Lavender raises your vibration and it clears you off. A lot of times I'll take lavender oil and sage oil and put it in my tub too. It's really nice.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really nice.
I can understand that. That is really nice. I'm a big fan of rose. Like,
rose that's water. So high vibrational.
It's good stuff. Or like, we all have our favorites. We all have our favorites, right? But essential oils, what they do, I agree, are fantastic. There's a question here. And so Susan, someone's asking, feeling emotions and the pain of others. What is that? Is that a part of being an empath?
Oh, I would definitely say that's part of being an empath, but it's also when you're connecting soul to soul, you're going to feel that. I think we all have tendencies of being an empath. I feel more like I'm highly sensitive rather than an empath. because I don't necessarily take it on as my own. I feel like you can feel it, but you don't have to take it on as your own. To me,
Yeah.
those are part of the boundaries I've sort of developed over the years to make it just healthier for me.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can understand that. I can understand that. I think some people are very naturally much more that.
Mm-hmm.
You can just see the way that they act around people. Like almost like they can't help themselves. They need to help the person because they just feel so like it's so personal to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely get to know your boundaries because other people are so much more pulled to others. Um, yeah, like I feel empathy for people, but I don't think I'm primarily an empath, just like you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just,
I think growing up with my family, I probably wouldn't have been allowed to. I was probably
yeah.
beaten out of me,
No,
just because
seriously.
they were just straight shooting people. But it can be really hard, especially, and I'm sure you picked this up too, Kelly, when the collective consciousness, when there's something big going on. I definitely will feel that. That's why even today I've been feeling kind of blue or depressed, and I don't usually get depressed. And I'm like, what's going on collectively? Like, there's got to be
Right.
something that I'm picking up right now. So sometimes it can be like that, or it will feel it like for me.
Right. And that one can sometimes, that one is a little bit more confusing to me sometimes, like where I go, well, where is this coming from? And I know that sometimes when there's certain types of, there's always stuff in the news, but when there's certain types of things in the news, like, sometimes like with like school stuff, unfortunately,
Oh,
if I
yeah.
feel like there's something bad that has happened at a school, for whatever reason, I will wake up that day and I will have a certain type of feeling like, gosh, it just feels like something's off. It just feels like,
Mhm.
there's these certain events that make us feel certain things. And so I really believe that it does affect the collective so deeply. And sometimes people are pulled to when more so when certain things are happening. Do you have a certain feeling that it makes you feel, or you just go, I know something's off?
Oh, like today, I knew it was the collective consciousness. I knew it wasn't me. Sometimes it can feel like I know this has something to do with somebody I'm very close with because I'll feel it in my
Yeah.
third chakra, and it'll be like, okay. I had an uncle who had a liver transplant last year, and I was feeling that the whole day he was having a liver transplant. I'm like, please don't let this be like an omen about something bad happening. I mean, it worked really well and it was fine. But I think I was just feeling a lot of the trepidation of everybody in my family.
That's real. No,
Yeah,
that's real. Have you ever like felt with other family members, like when you're around them, you pick up certain, I guess, stuff that that they have going on physically at times?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And especially, it's kind of interesting. My mom, I'm back in New York right now, taking care of my mom and helping with her. She's got dementia. And when I first came out here, I've been here since February. I was like so confused feeling. I was like just ditzy. And I swear to you, I was picking up the way my mom was thinking. And she's a sugar-aholic. I mean, the woman eats so much candy. I was craving sugar. I was like, I couldn't get enough candy bars. I'm like, I'm gonna leave and go to California weighing 20 more pounds. And I swear it's because I was tapping into my mom.
Yes, no, I believe that. I believe that. We start to become in some ways what the energy is around us, and sometimes it can be really great, and sometimes you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Exactly. And I'll even take that a step further. When I was married to a very low vibrational being, that was really hard. It was really hard. So we need to be super selective with who we allow into our energy space.
Yes, yes. It we do have boundaries and we can protect ourselves, but it's so natural for us to share energy as human beings that we shouldn't be constantly protecting and putting up walls. We should be very mindful, and we should naturally want to share energy with wonderful people who uplift and help and we relate to. Um, and it does make such a powerful impression on us. It really does.
Mhm. Yeah, I have to say I've gotten, and maybe that's just being older, I've gotten very selective with who I let in my space. You know, it's yeah, very selective about that. It's a
When you
healthier
be
way to be.
It's a healthier way to be, and when you become so sensitive to energy, there's kind of no other way to be, I would imagine, unless,
Mhm.
we all have to be in certain situations where it's like, I wouldn't choose this, but I have to be here for A, B, or C. But
Mhm.
for the stuff we can choose, it's like I make all my decisions based on energy unless,
Mhm.
I'm not the foremost where I can.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah.
And even when, take this a step further, when I'm dealing with somebody on a psychic level, I'm reading somebody psychically, and they're intimate with somebody who's not good for them. It's like, it's affecting you. You're sensitive. It's affecting you. You need to get out of that. You know what I mean? Because sometimes when I'm reading somebody and I'm in a situation like that, I'll actually get a visual of a skull and crossbones.
Oh, yeah. I hear you. That's what it kind of
Mhm.
feels like,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah.
this is depleting you so much for,
Mhm.
that skin and bones.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like you want to be life with life, not death with life.
Mhm.
No, I mean that's yes. I mean that's how can I put it? Sometimes people say like you want to be in a relationship with someone that you admire, right? Or someone you look up to because it's like you would want to match your vibration with someone equal or somebody higher than you because
Mhm.
you want to grow together and bring out the best in each other and you would be like, "Wow, I want to learn more how to be like that. That's beautiful. That's amazing."
Mhm.
Um and you share like on the intimate level you share energy so closely,
Right. And
so
I
closely.
found it really interesting. I'm going to say between 2015 and 2020, I had probably 8 medium friends who had long relationships and long relationships. It was like a medium, another one, divorce. It was like breakup after breakup after breakup. I was like, wow, energy clearly from days gone by, no longer matching. And it's like the powers that be clearing away what doesn't suit you anymore. And so
Yeah,
sometimes it doesn't serve us to hang on, to cling on to things that we shouldn't necessarily cling on to. Yeah.
it doesn't.
Yeah. But it was really weird. It was like just one after the other after the other. I was like, wow.
I feel like so you said 2015 to 2020, right? That's what you
Yep.
said. The pandemic, the pre-pandemic and the pandemic, I think really shook up the last bit of it's like, are you awake already? Right? With like just being forced, like this isn't working. I
Uh-huh.
think, yeah, that was what do you think about 2015 created some of that?
I don't know. It may have, well, I have to say 2012, everything leading up to 2012, it was like we
Yeah.
were on steroids. So, and then it was sort of like we were just settling in by the time we got to 2015. Um, and I swear, when I look at the pandemic, I feel like the pandemic could have happened in 2018. There's something that it's there's during that period in time, like 2015 to 2020, I feel like there were several windows that could have happened. Yeah.
I I believe it because I do feel like I don't know what it was, but it was kind of like around the 2010s,
Hmm.
uh, especially after 2012. It was almost like people started going back to sleep again. I don't know. It was almost like people were again suspended animation, and
Hmm.
it seems like things are so much more productive now. Is it
Right.
just me? You know what
No.
I mean? It's like something needed to ignite. I also, on the flip side, I saw around 2012 that a lot more people got into relationships. It was almost like, right, like that energy opened up a reawakening of like, hey, like, this is where I
Hmm.
have to be. But
Right.
it's interesting, right, that then there was that breakdown so soon. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's why when people are like, where's my person? I'm like, oh, there may not be a person for you. You know what I mean? It's just so funny when you realize on a soul level, when people are always so strung out, especially now the buzzword is twin soul. where's my twin soul? And
Twin
it's
flame.
twin flame. Yeah, exactly. And soulmates most often aren't life mates. They teach us things. They go their own way. You can have dear friends who are soulmates, family members who are soulmates. It just feels like the entertainment industry sort of weaves a different level of truth. And I see that a lot of times with my psychic readings. Yeah, because I feel like it's not like there's not necessarily just one person for you.
Right. Right. The concept of one, possibly we are all one. I believe that.
Absolutely.
But it's like there isn't just only one, right? It's just we're connected in oneness, but we're not split into just fixating on a oneness at the same time. It's like there isn't just one soulmate. There isn't just one life.
Right. And I mean, if you think about it, it's like the thing that's really I've learned as I've gotten older, and I'm almost 60, but as I've gotten older, I've learned that like nothing's permanent. So even if we do have this person, or if we have these family members, I mean, as you and I know, being mediums, I do the readings for the 18-year-olds who have died of fentanyl poisoning, or the, people that are a 52-year-old man who dies on a trampoline playing the trampoline with his kids, or you hear all these horrible, horrible stories about people passing when they're not old.
Right.
So it's, and I don't, where I'm at right now, whenever I do a demonstration here, I'm blown away by all the widows that are, they're between 40 and 60. Like all these women that are just, their husbands have crossed.
Right. You just never know what life is going to bring. And I think this work brings a lot of gratitude because of that. And
absolutely
appreciation for life. And then it really also turns on its head what we consider life to be. And we know that it's more than all these things that people said, like there's just not one soulmate. So when let's say, cause I'm thinking how to structure this question, because a soulmate can be a friend. It could be a coworker. It could be, a mother, a father, right? You just have this enormous just pull to a person or affinity for a person. In your case, how have you experienced soulmates?
Well, I've had the same best friend since I was 5. We met in kindergarten, and she's still my best friend. She moved out to California when I was 16, and I followed her out probably 10 years later. So I could honestly say we always jokingly say we're soul sisters. You know what I mean? And then there's people that I've had that I can definitely say, like my ex-husband was a soulmate because I learned so much from him, but he wasn't a life mate. And on a soul level, what a special, special individual. On a human level, not for me. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean when I say I see the human over here and then the soul over there. 2 very different things. And yes. And I mean, then there's family members that I know I'm not in their soul cluster at all. Right. Like I kind of feel like I love my family dearly, but I don't feel the soul connection to them.
Right. It's truly a feeling thing. And you could have family members that you love, but there's not a lot of relevance in your time with them. I do really agree with that sentiment. And tell me what you think. Like my kind of theory on it is, there's these soulmates that we have, and they come into our life for good or bad experiences. But before we come to Earth, it's like everyone kind of was working together. Hey, do you want to experience this together? Do you want to experience that together? And some of like the worst breakups or the worst relationships could be like from some of your best friends in spirit. Like, okay, I'm going to annoy the shit out of you. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to annoy the crap out of you, right? That's how passionate it is. I'm going to annoy the crap out of you. I'll just choose to say that word because we're on air, even though normally I appreciate being very colorful. Let me have the honor of doing this for you. Yes, you know me better than anyone. You will excel at this task. Please help me with this soul lesson.
Do you know, and I mean, it even goes further than that. Let me give you an example. And this helped me get through this situation. As you know, I think, Kelly, my niece was killed by a drunk driver. Okay. Very public case in the Buffalo area. I felt so deep in my heart that those two had set up an agreement with one another that he was going to do that to her so that X, Y, and Z could happen thereafter. So I think when it's not even that it has to be like a tight, it's like, I'm going to do this for you because you're going to teach me something, and then we're going to take it a step further. I know that to be true. And you say that to most people and they're going to look aghast at you. But I'm like, no, I really feel like that was an agreement between those two souls.
There are transformational or dynamic points within people's lives, and you better believe that they knew about it before they came to Earth. Like, okay, I'm going to be at this situation, and there has to be a cataclysm to make that happen. Where's that coming from? And that is pre-agreed upon. I totally believe that. I try to be very compassionate with people's understanding on how they can wrap their head around that. But I really do agree with that, Susan, because it's just everything I feel is divinely orchestrated. And so, things that make our heads spin, they're supposed to do that for a reason.
Right. Right. And I feel like that's why I love all of this metaphysical stuff, because it's not like there's a right or a wrong, and my thoughts are constantly evolving. I mean, from what I thought last year, it's like, it keeps getting tweaked, and I kind of like that. It's like you're on this evolution to just keep learning. And I love that.
We're on the evolution, and sometimes the evolution goes, well, is there really even reason, right? I'll even flip side it, but I do think that there is this. I don't think this life makes so much sense, but when we step away, there is a greater life connected to this one, and that's the one that makes more sense. And this one's kind of like the stage.
Absolutely.
Where we try stuff out. So of course it's going to sound insane. Of course it's going to be like, why would you ever have a life like that? Well, that's not I feel like this is not our real life. In a way, it's like our soul training ground.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm like, use your human in whatever capacity you want to use your human. Live out of that comfort zone, because your soul's going to learn that much more. And this is just like what you're saying. It's a stage. It's a stage for the soul to learn.
It's a stage for the soul to learn. I also do feel like, it does penetrate our soul so deeply, these interactions. And so I'm very aware of what karma does, because let's say we're like, well, your could make somebody wrestle a feeling or an experience for 3 lifetimes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
With the way that we share energy and go, it doesn't really matter, or I want to do this, whatever or if you were even just trying to be nice, but for whatever reason, like let's say you're just trying to be thoughtful, but for whatever reason the interaction gets misunderstood, and the ramifications, it's that's why I do think it's so important to be thoughtful, even though this is all just a stage.
Right. And did you read any of the Michael Newton books, like Journey?
I'm familiar with them.
Okay.
I'm familiar with them, but I haven't.
In Destiny of Souls, he interviews, I should say, hypnotizes all of these different people, and they talk about similar things that happen once they cross over into the in-between. And across the board, as they're crossing over into the in-between, they have this like review your life type of thing. And as they review their life, they have to like see everything and understand how they hurt everybody. And then the second part of it is they review it again, but then they have to feel all the feelings they made other people feel. And if you think about how powerful that is, if you know that you're going to have to go through and it's not like a selfish thing of, oh, I don't want to feel the pain, but we affect so many different people in ways that we just never, ever know.
No. Yeah.
So it's kind of powerful because I see that a lot of times with people when I'm talking to the spirit world, where they'll say, I had no idea, to their loved one. I didn't know how much that bothered you. It never even occurred to me, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or it's like, toughen up. I knew it bothered you, but I didn't know to what extent. You
Yeah.
know, like I had no I had no idea really. I think it's understood on that soul level. And I like the Michael Newton's way of describing how we just so intimately experience others
Mm-hmm.
on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have to say, with this type of work, that was sort of the vehicle that got me into all of this, was past life work. Like I said, I didn't want to, honestly, I remember one time taking a class with Lisa Williams, and she said, well, when you start doing readings, and I was like, I'm not going to do readings. Are you out of your mind? Famous last words, right?
And here you are.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, what do you feel that led you to past lives?
Well, I read my mother on her bookshelf. This book came out in 1975 called Life After Life by Raymond Moody, I think his name was. He's still alive. And it was all about near-death experiences. And it made me start thinking about reincarnation. I maybe was 10 or 11 when the book came out. And it just intrigued me, and it really like sucked me in. And then I remember seeing a Barbra Streisand movie called On a Clear Day You Can See Forever. And it starts getting into like her being reincarnated. And it just felt so right to me. It was like it just resonated with my little 10 or 11-year-old self. Yeah, it was weird.
Oh no, that makes sense. And so within readings now, how do you start to, whether it comes in through, let's say, a mediumship reading, or if it's its own reading as a past life reading, how does that experience start to open up with your knowing of what's in the other person's a soul lifetime, excuse me?
Yeah, the past lives that I begin to see on another person are always in direct correlation with things that are going on in their current life. Always. I don't just randomly see, something. But the way that it worked for me is it actually started when I started doing like hypnosis to do my past lives, where I would see like one object. I remember the first time I did it, I saw a lion door knocker, like you'd have on like a castle door. And that was the only thing I saw. And I'm like, why am I seeing this? And all of a sudden it was like panning back, like a camera started panning back, and I started seeing the whole scene. And so I don't know why that's the way that's the way it worked for me. And so when I start connecting into someone's, I'll just start panning back, and all of a sudden it's almost like you hit the movie reel, and all of a sudden I'm like seeing a movie reel. And I'll start seeing something, and I'm like, okay, this is past life, because this is not this person's life, but this is them.
Wow.
And it's really cool. And I know some people will tap into the Akashic records. To me, that's just kind of the way that it flows. So now it's like, as long as I can expand my awareness, it just happens.
That makes sense. That makes sense. It's so fascinating though. Because anytime I've experienced past lives, I just go, oh, I know that this is connected to that, and it's just like all of a sudden a thing will drop in, and it's connected, and you just get like this fork in the road that just is parallel as it's the fork. But I love the fact that you actually, have this full-bodied experience where you're like, I get this picture and I just go back, and it just, that's amazing.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not like it was intentional. It kind of just started happening. And now when I teach people how to do it, that's kind of the way I'm like, okay, go for one. And a lot of times too, it's like, look at your feet. And so it's like when you become the person and you're looking at your feet, you're like, okay. And then you can start looking around. Because your feet can tell you a lot about what era you're in if you see feet. You know what I mean? It really does. It's kind of funny.
It's true. It's true. If you're familiar with Denise Lynn, are you?
Yeah.
She's wonderful, and she does like past life regressions with groups, and she'll like go, we're gonna journey through the mist, and as the mist clears, look down at your feet. What are you wearing? Yeah.
Yeah,
Start to
it's
work
true.
your way up.
Yeah, it's true. And like even like when you look at the clothing, I mean, I've seen things where I'm like, okay, and I didn't even know this was a thing. I'm like, okay, the arms aren't connected. They're like the arms of the clothes aren't connected to like the bodice. They were like separate pieces. And I did
Oh,
research
yeah, yeah.
afterwards. I'm like, did the people actually did you have separate pieces? And I think around the 1600s you did. That was how your clothes were made. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know?
The only reason I know that is because like period pieces with movies, like sometimes they'll have, but yeah, like I wouldn't have thought about that
Uh-huh.
necessarily if you're just, but it puts it together. Wow. Yeah. It's just good stuff. It's just good stuff. Again, you never know what's going to come to you. Um, may I ask to, oh, first, one last question, and then I'm going to ask you about what events you have coming up and how people can be a part of them and where to find you. We have another question. Someone says, how do you know when you're entering a new level of vibration? How does it feel and where do you feel it the most? I think they're saying. Where do you feel it the most?
What do you mean a new level of vibration?
They're saying when you're entering a new level of a vibration, I think I would interpret that in a way where they are, how do you know when, like, how do you know it's real when you feel things changing around you? How do you, like, what are some of the signs that you're changing?
Meaning me personally or when I'm doing work?
Like that you're becoming more sensitive. I think when people talk about the vibration, like, oh, like I'm seeing signs, is my vibration changing? I'm
Oh,
I'm
okay, okay.
feeling more
To me, it's
right.
like if my vibration is lifting and it's getting like, let's say, going from third dimension or density into fourth or fifth dimension density. I see so many synchronicities. I mean, so many. And numerology is like huge with me. I see so many repeat numbers. Like I said, the 333, that was the first time that ever happened, but now it's like it happens all the time. I will even, it's just like the craziest things will happen where it's just like you're constantly getting waves where you're on the right path because you couldn't make this stuff up.
Can't make this stuff up. No, yeah, I think that's the perfect way to put it. You can't make some of this stuff up, and you just have to honor that it's
Mm-hmm.
real and it's not just there to make you feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there to make you hide and to shut down, because then it's going to get you can't escape it, like you said earlier,
Right.
Susan. Like you're like it's going to come and find you, like
Mm-hmm.
it's a part of you, like it's meeting you
Yeah.
because it's a part of you.
Yeah, if
um
you're meant to do this work, I mean, and I look at it every morning when I wake up. I'm like, let me be of service to the spirit world. Let me be of service to mankind and let me serve my soul's purpose. I say that every time I sit down to do a reading. And so to me, it's like, if we're doing it, that's such a high vibration. That is, it's such a altruistic.
Yeah, it's extremely altruistic. It really is. Everything is actually very helpful, even though it might feel very confusing and scary.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is, this work is about like truth and finding new streams of information that leads us to the truth. And the truth is helpful. The truth is kind of scary sometimes, but the truth is helpful because it is what it is. And when we know the way things are, everything just flows. There
Mm-hmm.
nothing's blocked or unencumbered. The light is shown on things, and this work's all about being enlightened.
Mm-hmm.
Things coming to light. It's very important. I'm very passionate about the truth or
Oh
concepts
no,
of the
I'm with you 100%.
truth. You would be as a life path 7. That's all about wisdom and finding the truth.
Yep, absolutely.
It gets you out of bed in the morning.
Mhm.
So I want people to come find you. So what events do you have going on, whether it's demonstrations or classes or a private reading? Where can people find your social media, your website?
Okay, my website's pretty simple. It's just mediumsusan.com. Nice, easy, mediumsusan.com. I am actually on hold for a few months with my teaching, just because I'm back east helping with my mom. But I
Yeah.
will be jumping full force come September. On Tuesday night, I have a circle on Zoom. On Wednesday afternoon, I have a circle on Zoom. They go for 4 weeks. And then I have a Wednesday in-person circle in Santa Monica. And then I'm in the midst of planning a demonstration at Santa Monica Playhouse. So that'll probably be the last week in September.
You're going to be really busy.
I'm going to be really busy. Really busy. And I do one-on-one readings all over the world with Zoom and on the phone if you're in the States. And all of that can be booked right at mediumsusan.com.
And are you Susan Schueler 111 on Instagram platform? Yeah.
Yeah, on Instagram, it's Susan Schueler 111 on Instagram. And then it's just Psychic Medium Susan Schueler on Facebook.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
However people want to reach out. And it goes by so fast, I always say. But before we kind of leave, I asked the guest if they would like to share a piece of wisdom or something off the cuff. So some people do poetry, some people pull a card, some people just say, I wrote something before I came, or some people just say, this is in my heart right now. So it's honestly, it's whatever you just want to share.
I'm going to share with you something that came up in several of my readings today. The art of detachment. And how important it is to not attach ourselves to outcomes. Because what do they say? With attachment comes suffering. And to me, it took me a long time, especially when it came to like the idea of my making goals. And at the same time, you know, having goals and wanting outcomes. But I think it's sort of like that song, you know, you got to roll with it. Life is so much easier if we just roll with things. And whether that means, you know, you don't try to, if a relationship's not working out, you let it go. If, you know, you feel like you're not supposed to live here anymore, you let it go. You just roll with it, because I just think sometimes we as humans are human, clings on to things when we should just let it go. And I think letting it go can be a really big challenge if we don't learn to detach.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just thinking about it with, I think, you know, detaching is, it's so interesting because we have to almost be personal in this life to a certain extent, right? Mm-hmm. Because when we're so detached, we're like the universe, right? We just are, mm-hmm. But we've come here in a certain form, but yet to detach.
Mm-hmm. And so often, I mean, and you see, I'm sure you see this all the time too, where it's like, everybody wants to know, how am I going to get to point A? How am I going to do it? And it's like, no, you're focusing on the wrong thing. It's not how you're going to do it. Just have faith it's going to happen. Just go with the flow and enjoy the ride. I have a surfer friend of mine, and he's always like, when the wave starts coming, man, you can't fight it. You got to go with it. You're either diving down or it's killing you. It's true.
Go with the waves.
Yeah, seriously.
Go with the flow. With that said, Susan, that's amazing advice and a way to see life. Thank you so much for being here. I so enjoyed talking to you. I could talk to you for another hour. For real. Please, everybody, don't forget to tune in later this week for the Friday reading show. But until then, go with love, luck, light, and we're so appreciative of Susan being on with us today. Please don't forget to live. Take care. See you on Friday.
Bye.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.